What's happening, YouTube? Davey Deathray here, and I am back with my third video. Well, it's actually a reshoot of my third video. You see, yesterday I did this whole thing, shot it, posted it, shared it, all that good stuff, and then this morning I gave it a review, and man, the audio was just junk. So I went out there, got a wireless mic, and we are going to give this another shot. We are going to look at the RAD 9 movies that made me. But first, I want to give a couple shout outs here. You see the art behind me. This setup here, hopefully it just gets better and better and we continue to pepper things throughout. But I wanted to give a shout out to some of the artists. We got John Sanchez here with this beautiful Dawn of the Dead poster. So amazing. I love supporting independent artists. I think it's one of the best ways you can spend your money if you're going to be out there and be a consumer. And John's buddy, Jeremy Montoya, put together this Halloween poster. And also he did the Mystery Science Theater 3000, the movie poster as well. I happened to pick this up years ago when I was working on the Wizard World Comic Con. And then just happened to bump into Jeremy at Mad Monster a couple weeks ago. So picked up these two then. Super happy to have them in the collection. And doesn't the Mystery Science Theater just look so nice right above Rob Zombie's Michael Myers? I think it does. And real quick, guys, before we get started here on the list, please like the video if you like it. And if you really like it, I would love a subscribe. If you could hit that subscribe button, that would be great. We're still so young here with the channel. We're hoping it grows, so we will take anybody, and I mean it. All right, and yeah, we're getting into the RAD 9 movies that made me. I saw Lee from Drum Dums put one of these videos out. Shout out to Lee. He's one of the YouTubers that really inspired me to get my own thing going. So got to give props to him. But the genesis of the challenge comes from the RAD pack. I've been seeing some videos pop up on YouTube just within the last day or two. Whole bunch of people doing this, a whole bunch of people with really great production values and all that. So I figured, I know I'm young in the, in the whole world of YouTube. But when I watched Lee's video, I was like, yeah, I can easily think of 9 movies that affected me this way. Movies I kept on watching, movies I keep on going back to, cornerstones of my film fandom. So thank you so much, Lee, for, kind of popping that idea off in my head. And this one's got a little bit of a different spin. We're going to be doing physical media. So all of these movies are movies that I have to have a physical copy of. That was no problem at all. So without any further ado, let's get into it. All right, first up, we have got Disney's classic, The Little Mermaid. Now, I saw this film when I was I think it came out when I was in second grade, like 88, 89. Very impressionable on all the kids, in my class. I remember they showed this in the classroom, and I could not help but sing all the songs because I'm that sort of ham. Haven't seen the new one. Let me know in the comments what you think of the remake. Really, I just don't see that much of a point in visiting the live action remakes. I think animation, you can just do so much more. I really wish Disney would spend some money and do some real hand-drawn animation again. I know it's expensive, but it's beautiful. We need movies like this. The Little Mermaid has always stuck with me. Great songs, great story, beautiful animation, and a complete classic. So happy to have it in the collection here. And next up, whoo-wee, Tim Burton's Batman 89, as the kids like to call it these days. What a fun summer movie. What an amazing thing to see as a kid. I was born in 82, so right at that age where this just felt real to me. And I've got a fun little story. So I grew up in Juneau, Alaska. It's in the southeast part of Alaska, and it's super rainy. It's usually really dreary. 300 days of precipitation a year, which means if it's not raining, it's probably snowing. And I remember the day that my sister Melanie, my oldest sister, shout out Mel, thank you so much for taking me to Batman. The day that we went to the movie, it was just an absolutely gorgeous day. I remember the drive. I remember not a cloud in the sky, so sunny. Probably not too warm though, because it's Alaska. But my sister got me a Charleston Chew, a vanilla Charleston Chew, and a tube of Sweet Tarts. I've kind of been obsessed with those candies ever since then, and obsessed with Batman 89. When this thing came out on VHS, I probably watched it every day for a good 2 or 3 months. I wrote a letter to Jack Nicholson. I wanted to be an actor. This one just really had a huge impact on me. Still my favorite Batman film if I had to pick one. All right, coming up next, Turtle Power. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. This one came out, I believe, in 1990. I remember seeing it in the theater. Of course, as an 80s baby, I was obsessed with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And what's really cool about this film is, when you're a kid, it reminds you, or it reminded me at the time that, oh, this is kind of like the cartoon. It's just, live action. It just had that kind of fun vibe. And then as I got older and kept on revisiting it and going back to it, maybe I took like a 10-year break and I jumped back in and I was like, this movie is like pretty dark and pretty funny. It's like the perfect marriage of that silly Turtles that I grew up with and then, the dark comics, the original interpretation. I think the creators have a hell of a lot to be proud of with this film right here. I think it's the best Turtles film, stands the test of time, and dare I say, gets better with every watch. Kind of reminds me of RoboCop in that sense. Every time I watch it, I'm like, I love it more. I love it more. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Oh man, this one's a big one for me because this one is my favorite film of all time. We've got Steven Spielberg's 1975 classic, Jaws. So, Jaws. Oh my gosh, what can you say about Jaws that everybody hasn't said? Well, I will say this. Jaws is dramatic, suspenseful, thrilling, horrific, and it's funny. It's got everything. It's got all five. How many movies have all five? Think about that. That is a crazy thing to try to think about, is a film that's got all five of those feels going on. Jaws has it and more. I still think the shark looks great. I love Roy Scheider's performance. I adore Robert Shaw. Richard Dreyfuss is really fun in here. I'm happy they had problems with the shark because I feel like it really built up that suspense. And by the time you saw it, you were ready for it, and the film just really kicks off. I do like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, but I think that Jaws was robbed for Best Picture. I think if they redid the Oscars for the 1975 pictures, Jaws would be right at the top of the list. Dun-dun, dun-dun. And coming up next, you wouldn't be a guy in your 40s if you didn't have a Star Wars movie in your RAD movies that made you list, right? And this one that I'm going to pick here, it's not my favorite in the franchise, but when I was a little kid and I was getting into Star Wars, Return of the Jedi really stood out to me, and not because of the Ewoks or any of the silly stuff. Really, it was all the emotion. Luke and Vader in the little, I don't know if it's like an airlock, the little walkway. That scene right there where he's, they're sort of having a battle of wits, and Luke just knows, like, my father's still in there. Like, I can feel him, and I'm getting goosebumps right now just thinking about it. It's pathetic. But yeah, all that emotion, and then especially, the final, like the battle where the Emperor makes Luke fight Vader is just downright Shakespearean. It is beautiful. The editing in the final act of Return of the Jedi is some of the best editing I've ever seen. I mean, it goes, even though you got Ewoks and all that, it goes smoothly through all those different phases. You never wonder, oh, what's so and so up to. The film takes care of that for you. Yeah, Return of the Jedi, even with all its flaws, it's up there. It had such an impression on me. Speaking of impressions, we've got Mr. Mikey Myers for Halloween. Now, the original Halloween is the movie I'm picking here, but it wasn't the first one I saw. The first Halloween movie I ever saw was Halloween 2. Back in the late 80s, early 90s, the USA Network ran these things like back to back around Halloween. So I just happened to catch it part 2 and then watched part 1 right after. So kind of a weird backwards 2-part story there. And a fun little tale here, going back to Mad Monster the other week, is my wife and I were walking through the aisles there, and somebody starts shouting, and she's like, "Hey, this guy's shouting at you." And I turn around, and it's Dick Warlock. He saw my shirt here that's got Michael. I don't know if you guys can see that or see my belly. But yeah, Dick was like, "I love your shirt." And I went over, I got to tell him that he was my original Michael Myers. and got to joke around with him about. I was like, "Aren't you in every movie ever made?" And he was super sweet guy. His wife was super sweet. It was great getting to meet a legend like that. Never met him before, and a really cool moment. But yeah, getting back to John Carpenter's classic, the music, the cinematography, the atmosphere, the mood, the idea of somebody just walking around stalking people, biding their time, waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike, just downright creepy. I know some people may not be into the slow burn aspect of the original Halloween. It is a classic that's very much loved. But maybe, I've definitely heard some people that aren't too into horror that think it's kind of slow, but I like that. I want to spend time getting to know characters. I want to spend time just seeping into like the mood and the feel of the movie. John Carpenter is one of the greatest at doing that. I think the advantage there is being the person that's in charge of the visuals and of the music. So when John Carpenter is in control of those two things, he really takes you for a ride. And I think that Halloween is his master class in that approach. We're gonna get into something funny here. We've got boom, Mallrats, Kevin Smith's follow up to Clerks. Now, I know it's not really meant as like a direct sequel. I really liked Clerks. I still love it, but when I was like first saw it, I was pretty young. And it's one of those things where like if you don't have a job or like a real girlfriend or like real problems, when you watch Clerks, you definitely enjoy the jokes, the crude humor, and the punk rock soundtrack, of course. But when I saw Mallrats, this was just hilarious. I mean, it was just full bore comedy. Shout out to my cousin Andy Dujensky for showing me Mallrats for the first time. I had a ball. I watch it maybe twice a year, every year since then. Jason Lee's performance as Brody is downright Chevy Chasey, and he hones that Fletch cadence, little bit of that Caddyshack swagger from Chevy. It would have been awesome to see Jason Lee play Fletch in a movie, but that didn't happen. But at least we got Brody. Mallrats is super hilarious. Keep on going back to it. Very quotable, highly, highly quotable film if you're cool. All right, jumping back into horror because we can't stay away too long. We've got 1968's Night of the Living Dead by George A. Romero. Now, George is so good at just owning the zombie genre, isn't he? I mean, you watch other zombie movies and you're just like, what the heck is this? This isn't George Romero. These things are moving too fast. There's no social commentary that's subtly worked into the story. But this one's got it all. I didn't watch it until I was about 16. I don't know if it was just because it was so old that I just figured I'll get around to it. But when I first saw it, the black and white just stood out to me as gorgeous. I mean, the zombies look so good in black and white. Not that I don't dislike, zombies in color, but I think sometimes just in black and white, all you have to worry about is the texture, the shading, and the lighting. And man, in Night of the Living Dead, they really knocked that out of the park. Going back to the commentary as well, what I really like about, especially Romero's first few films, is weaving in that social commentary. You can enjoy every single one of his movies as just pure entertainment, really fun horror. But you can also, take a look at what it says about us. And generally, what I take from it is that the people are the bad guys, and the zombies are just sort of like the catalyst for change. The zombies are whatever controversial topic tears us apart, like going to war or abortion or whether or not Halloween Ends is a good movie, the big stuff. So big shout out to George. Rest in peace, George. You're one of my favorite filmmakers of all time. I adore Night of the Living Dead so much. And even though Day of the Dead is my favorite in the series, I'm picking this one because it started it all. And last but not least, maybe this is the giveaway here, The Evil Dead. Holy boop. When I first watched The Evil Dead with my friends back in Juneau, Alaska, we had no idea what we were getting into. My friends Barney, Tom, Rachel White, and there must have been a few others there, and I just can't remember you guys. I'm so sorry. But we watched the original Evil Dead back then, and we really didn't know what we were getting into. I think somebody that I was like chatting with on IRC told me about it. And after the movie ended, we kind of looked around and we're like, damn, that was really, really good. So what did we do? Well, it was the 90s, so we got in a car, drove down to Blockbuster in beautiful Juneau, Alaska, and rented Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness. We stayed up until about 2 or 3 a.m. watching the whole entire trilogy. It was a great memory. I keep on revisiting this. This is another one that gets watched at least once a year. Like to go through the whole series. I also, love the 2013 film. It's my second favorite to the original. But this one is my favorite in the series. I know it's kind of rough a little bit, but there's something that's punk rock about this movie. And, it may be odd to describe a film as punk rock, but, not a very high budget. Sometimes they only had a few people on the set to help them, and they're doing it in just like really shoddy conditions. But they forged ahead, they made it work, they did it themselves. They have something that they should be so proud of here. I'll always remember the shot, the over the Raptors shot. That's like, whoop, 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 whoop. Perfect. Love that. That's the creativity of Sam Raimi. Something that makes his filmmaking really stand out, especially his early stuff. And Tarantino used that in The Hateful Eight. I don't know if he used the sound. It's been a little bit since I've watched The Hateful Eight, but I know he does that above the Raptor shot. And I think it's just his little like wink, because The Hateful Eight, at least to me, kind of reminds me of Evil Dead meets The Thing meets a spaghetti western. It's kind of shove all those together. Um, Gosh, Evil Dead, so great. The franchise is still going strong. I liked Evil Dead Rise. I've only seen it once. I need to watch it a few more times. I didn't completely fall in love with it the way that I did with the 2013 version or with Ash versus Evil Dead, but I think that's just because I really want Evil Dead to like keep on pushing and keep on making us uncomfortable and giving us intensely horrific situations. Again, I did like the new one. There's not a weak entry in this series. It's kind of like Scream in that way, where you're not going to get a bad film in Evil Dead. Although I will say, I think the Evil Dead just completely blows Scream out of the water if I had to pick between the two. Well, that's going to wrap it up for the RAD 9 movies that made me. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you like what you saw, please click the like button. If you really liked it, please subscribe. And if you're feeling saucy, click that notification button. It's the only way that you're going to find out that I shot a video, posted it, deleted it, and reshot it and uploaded the reshoot. So there you go. Exclusivity. You've got it. Real quick, before I go, I do want to say, another thank you to all the people in the community. Everyone has been really supportive and encouraging so far. I'm probably going to harp on that for a little bit because this thing is so fresh and so new. It feels awesome to be part of a community, and I really, really am looking forward to what the future holds. So until next time, take care.